Over these last couple of weeks here on United People's TV, I've covered as much of Jim Ratcliffe's first couple of weeks as co-owner at Manchester United as I possibly can. From him meeting all the staff at Old Trafford, to going to Old Trafford to the Spurs game, speaking to the press, meeting Ten Hag. And what I want to do in this video is run through in a bit more detail his meetings with Manchester United fans, the Manchester United Supporters Trust, the United Fans Forum and the Fans Advisory Board. Andy Mitten's done an excellent article in The Athletic. I'll leave the link in the description. I would encourage you to go over and read it, because inside this, from the people who were there, the people who listened to Jim Ratcliffe, they give their insights into a little bit more about the personalities of Ratcliffe, of Brailsford, of Blanc, of the overall plans. And I want to speak about it because we need to, as a fan base, we have to scrutinise. And this accountability that is coming from these meetings, from their pledges and what they are saying, is something that we can carry through. You can let me know what you think about it. Watch the video. It'll only be 10 minutes long. But let's run through this because, as I said, Jim Ratcliffe has been busy in these first couple of weeks. This week, he met with the Manchester United Supporters Trust in person. He met with the Fans Advisory Board. He had a video call with the United Fans Forum. He also met local councillors in Manchester. He also met the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham. Jim Ratcliffe has had a very visible presence in these first couple of weeks. Now, you'd be correct in saying that he's sweeping up the easy wins. There's something that the Glazers never did. And INEOS will be well aware of the lack of communication and how they can start off on a different foot. But that's exactly what they have done. And I've spoken about that in quite a lot of detail already. But let's run through some more. I suppose these are kind of interesting notes about the personalities, about who exactly Ratcliffe and Brailsford and Blanc are and how they carry themselves in these meetings. Now, this quote here, this is quite a funny one. It says, look, he's not a dickhead. He's pretty direct. Why use 10 words when 2 will suffice? And that comment on Ratcliffe is something that has parallels to this, which we heard from Toto Wolff before Ratcliffe actually took over.
Jim and his partners, Andy and John, they are, first of all, very complimentary. And this is a no organization. They are huge in terms of revenue and profit, and decisions are being made quickly. 3 bullet points on a page, and here we go. With Jim, all the is cut out. So I think wherever he gets his power and his resource and character behind it, that's going to be an add-on for any team.
That's Toto Wolff, who of course is going to speak from a complimentary perspective about somebody he works close with. But that's now 2 different people, both saying the same thing about how he carries himself, straight to the point. And what Manchester United need are clinical decision makers at Manchester. We do. That's something that the Glazers, again, never did. Dithering, lack of clarity, lack of actual decision-making ability. But on top of that is, we can speak about Ratcliffe all we want, right? And he might be the man at the top of the tree. He might be the leader in that sense. But in terms of the person who's really going to instigate the change at the club, I would say Dave Brailsford is probably more important on a day-to-day basis. And this was said about Dave Brailsford in that meeting. He said Dave Brailsford was very focused. Jean-Claude said less. He listened. And that's quite an interesting one, because we've seen now that there's reports saying that Jean-Claude Blanc will not become CEO of Manchester United, and he will stay on as, I think, as director of sport for INEOS, and therefore kind of oversee Manchester United from afar, which probably means that Dave Brailsford has an even more central role to play. They alluded to spending the last year doing their research into the club. We've heard about the audit. Have they started it? They started doing their research last year. This is not a short-term process and not a short-term audit, really. Brailsford was very impressive in his analysis. And the thing I have to keep repeating, which is, in my opinion, is completely true. We can talk about all the brilliant plans that INEOS may or may not have. But probably their first year as owners of the football operations of Manchester United is about clearing up the mess that's been left behind. The house has to be cleaned before it can be rebuilt and extended. Like, just wherever you look at the finances, it's an absolute abomination. Manchester United reporting a loss in the first quarter of this year. Manchester United now with liabilities, including the direct debt, including monies owed to other clubs for transfers, and including overdrafts, of nearly £1.2 billion. Dave Brailsford's job at the beginning is going to be about clearing all of this up, creating a far more sustainable business of Manchester United's football operations, where you can then build success on. And then again, you might say this is easy wins. It's completely true. Trust in youth, mixing that with, dynamic players, glamorous players. And then you go strong leadership, has vision and purpose. It's saying all the right things, yes. But by carrying this and speaking to Manchester United Supporters Trust and speaking to the Fans Advisory Board and saying this, it creates that level of accountability. And that's why I keep doing these videos. Because these videos for me are markers of accountability. I can go back to this video in 3, 4, 5 months' time and say, well, we had this conversation back in January. Where's the action? And they are really clearly going to have a far more visible presence than the Glazers ever did. Some more information. Let's go through this. Jim Ratcliffe saying, look, somebody's saying this about Ratcliffe, sorry. I wouldn't have been surprised if they hadn't have done it in terms of these meetings until the deal was done, or if INEOS had done it but without Jim. But again, INEOS is smart. They knew the value and the power that these early impressions would have. Somebody else who was there saying it was just so different to the Glazers. It was refreshing. Everybody who was inside these meetings has sort of come away with the same sorts of impressions of Jim Ratcliffe, of Brailsford, of Blanc, that it does feel refreshing, that it does feel different. And it really does at this point. But of course, and that's where this next point is, it completely rings true. So this is Jay Deitch, who's the chairman of Must, says this, right? Actions speak louder than words. Jim Ratcliffe there saying, and it's not the first time he said this, and I imagine when his full proper statement comes out in a few weeks' time, when he faces the press, this is all, it's not hearsay, but these are quotes and impressions from people who spoke to Ratcliffe directly. In 3-ish weeks' time, we'll be able to make our own impressions with interviews that he's going to give to the press. But he's kind of said on more than one occasion that INEOS are not in this for the money. They've made their money in chemicals. They have a multi-billion-pound global corporation. If making a quick buck was their aim, Manchester United is not the place to make it. Because of how bad our finances are, because of how much debt we have, United is kind of the opposite, really, of a quick win. It's the opposite of check in, be owner for a year or 18 months, check out with a profit. I don't actually think that's going to be physically possible. It's a long-term plan. And actions do speak louder than words. At this moment in time, until Ratcliffe has the deal ratified by the Premier League and he actually becomes our 25% owner and controls the football operations, he can't actually wield the axe. Even if you wanted to get rid of John Murtough, he can't get rid of John Murtough. Even if you wanted to say something about the Glazers, which you probably never will really, considering they still own 75% of the club, but he can't particularly do anything from an action perspective. It can just be about words and plans. And as I said, if you want to read this article, I would encourage you to do it. The link is in the description. There's a lot more interesting details. And that's kind of what all these videos are supposed to do. What I'm trying to do is bring everything into one place so we can follow the journey together, really. Because it can be different, right? And that's something that's said down here right at the bottom. We have to give them a chance, is what Deitch says about Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS. They are saying all the right things. And they're visibly saying it. They're putting their face to it. They're creating that accountability that the Glazers never had because they disappeared to Florida. Am I guaranteeing that it's going to be any different? No. Do I get the impression that it could be different? I genuinely do. Now, I know that I'm an internally optimistic United fan, but hey, if you're not optimistic as a football fan, you don't have hope, then, well, you need that. Every single year you go into a season with more hope. You have to. And I have to hope that Jim Ratcliffe really is going to follow through on what he's been saying and suggesting throughout this whole process, really. He's not in it for the money. It's all about creating that elite team environment, using the goodness of what United did previously compared to what has happened, and then speaking to the mayor about United being a local community club and how important that is. They certainly talk the talk, INEOS, and I think that's really come across in everything that I've covered in these 2 weeks from all the meetings that took place. Can they walk the walk? Is what we will find out in a few weeks' time, when I don't expect like a full manifesto to come out from Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS, but I expect there to be a lot more clarity on the short-term plans, medium, and the long-term vision of where they want to we know where they want to take this football club, but when and how. Investment in the team, in the infrastructure. So many more questions. But up until this point, honestly, I think INEOS and Ratcliffe have made all the right noises in all the right ways. And I hope it continues.